Unfortunately, with all the major breaches that are happening outside the tax system, people's identities are being stolen, and then they're attacking the U.S. tax system to try to file fraudulent returns. Our job is to prevent that from happening.
Well, far too often, those Americans who make a simple or casual mistake on their taxes find themselves being hammered by the overbearing nightmare that is the Internal Revenue Service. Perhaps for even saying that out loud, I may be the next target of their probing manner. I will be careful. Would that they paid more attention to their own manner of doing business and perhaps chased after the real frauds. Our tax collection national nightmare might be more in line with what needs to be addressed. To the points, then, our guest is chairman and founder of Identity Theft 911 and Credit.com. Also, former director of the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, Adam Levin, joins us. Adam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for the invitation, Ed.
Well, this is certainly going to get most people thinking, because here's the IRS actually paying out $5.8 billion with a B, in fraudulent refunds that it realized were fraudulent only later. Okay, wait. I have to start here with the whole IRS thing. How could they be so stupid?
Well, the biggest problem is that they're under congressional mandate to get refunds back to taxpayers as quickly as possible. They've adjusted their filtering systems to do this, even though they've tried to make them as sophisticated as possible. Identity thieves steal names and social security numbers, they doctor up a W-2 form, and they file them. And they tend to file them early. And as a result, it's been a growing problem for the IRS. A couple of years ago, they had to issue 600,000 PIN numbers to people who were victims. That went to 1.2 million. Last year, 1.7 million. And nobody really even has a clue as to how many they'll be issuing this year because of this refund nightmare.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit, and I'll perhaps apologize if I need to the IRS, because already I'm sure that they're already going over all of my tax returns for the last 20 years. But if we look at all of these different things here with PIN numbers and consumer fraud, okay, as much as it might pain us to say it, is it possible to say that maybe this wasn't the IRS's fault, that they simply don't have the immense amount of investigative that they need to have in order to find this out before they pay it out?
Well, they have been adding a great deal of resources to this fight. They added another 3,000 people in order to help consumers because it's becoming such a disaster. They've tried to direct new resources, but now against that backdrop, you have sequestration. And as a result of sequestration, their budgets have been cut and they've been losing manpower. So this is you have this conflicting situation, and they're facing a nightmare because everywhere you turn, and you and I have talked about this before, it's an identity theft nightmare. And now add to this tax season the fact that Anthem was breached, and 80 million, that's millions, Social Security numbers are now floating around out there. And they're in the hands of people that are not our best friends, who could well be using this also to file false tax returns. So it is a real tough road that they have to hoe here.
All right. Now, is it fair to say that on the other side of this, that the crooks are just getting a whole lot more aggressive here, and there simply is, what you just mentioned here and what we've talked about, it would seem there are mountains of numbers out there, and simply put, no one could actually find them. It's just that invasive at this point.
No, the problem is that hacks have become the third certainty in life. Identity theft is becoming close to a dead certainty in life. You have all of this information out there. Now think of this from the perspective of a criminal. Instead of doing drug deals under street lamps in the middle of the night where you risk being killed or arrested, now you can have scores of people sitting in the motel rooms in their pajamas filing fraudulent tax returns. What would you rather do in terms of cost-benefit analysis?
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a rhetorical question because I don't think I'm gonna have to answer that one. So about a minute before we take a break, come back and talk here then. What is it that the consumer can do? Because it seems as if the IRS is always going to say, you need to do a better job of protecting your data. We can't do it all. So the consumer is going to get stuck with the responsibility here one way or the other.
Well, the biggest problem now is consumers have to again try to do everything they can to possibly protect all of their personal identifying information. But unfortunately, you could do everything right. And if you're on the wrong database at the wrong moment and the wrong person gains unauthorized access, you've got a problem, and unfortunately, too often, too much of that has been happening. So this has to be a collaborative effort between government, consumers, and businesses, which the president's talked about, which the Cyber Summit at Stanford was trying to address. These are the kinds of things that we have to do to get more of a handle on this.
All right, we've now scared everybody. We're going to take a break, come back and scare them a little bit more. Hold on just a couple of minutes here, Adam. Big brother governments also snooping around your data in new ways of late. Hey, just when you thought that SIM card was nice and safe, here comes the reality. Because trust me, they're looking for your social security number, your bank account numbers, your license IDs, everything. Did you ever think of what's stored on that SIM card? Stick around, we're back on MidPoint. All right, let's get back to work with the chairman and founder of Identity Theft 911 and former director of the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, Adam Levin. Adam, the president says he is going to establish a cyber threat intelligence integration center. And I love the way things are always written up here, so fancy, aimed at coordinating ongoing federal efforts to counter hackers and other cyber threats aimed at the U.S. government and private industry. Okay, now let's put this into English here. Is it really going to get anything done, in your opinion, and is this much too little and much too late?
Well, no, I think that it's not a question of too little or too late, because unfortunately this is an ongoing problem. This is not a sprint, this is a marathon. We have to get involved together, we have to work together on this. The issue has been, for too long, government hasn't been willing to share threat assessment information with business. Business has been very much unwilling to share threat assessment information with the government. They didn't really want to share the information with each other. It's been a struggle to get businesses to actually disclose they've had breaches in the first place. That's why we have 47 jurisdictions that have breach notification laws, and we're still trying. I wonder if I'm going to live long enough to see this, where we're going to get a national breach notification law.
Wait a minute, you just said if you're going to live long enough to see it. Why then don't we have the national breach law? What's sitting in the way? Because it sounds as if, from what you're saying, this would be the next logical step to take in protecting ourselves.
Well, the biggest problem is that you have competing ideologies on this. There are many states that have extremely strict breach notification laws. There are many states that don't. The senators and the attorneys general from the states that have the stricter laws are worried that if a federal law is passed and it preempts state law, that, as with everything that comes out of Washington, it's going to be so watered down that it's going to take away a number of the protections that their breach laws have given them. So this is a fight, and the question is, can we produce a law that's a floor as opposed to a preemptive ceiling, where companies would be able to have more assurance that they would be dealing with one standard as opposed to 47 different ones, but that the standard would also be fair, reasonable, but yet tough, so that consumers would get notified as quickly as possible that they're having a problem.
Adam, the latest U.S. intelligence appraisal of dangers facing the country says saboteurs, spies, and thieves expanding their computer attacks against a vulnerable American internet infrastructure. What is your biggest fear that the next step will be for these hackers?
Well, everyone is worried about what we call cybergeddon, which is where they will actually bring down the electric grid, bring down the financial grid. We've certainly seen with massive hacks their ability to get in and get as much data as they seem to want to. And the problem is, we've seen with a hack of JP Morgan, 83 million files that have been exposed. With the now alleged Chinese hack of Anthem, 80 million files. But what if they were able to literally shut down the electric grid, or shut down the financial grid, or create a disaster in the markets? I mean, these are things that people worry about. Certainly the folks on the Federal Reserve will tell you that's what keeps them up at nights.
About a minute left here. How much are you concerned when you hear that one of the world's largest manufacturers of SIM cards says that apparently American and British intelligence agencies are now able to hack into the cards of mobile phones?
Well, I'm worried about that a lot, because I've also learned that whatever the government can and has done, private hackers or state-sponsored hackers have the capability of doing as well. And you know, it's one thing to be into these devices for national security purposes, and even there, it is a very dangerous erosion of privacy. But what happens when really bad actors get involved in getting into these cell phone systems as well? That's why I think you and I should declare one moment in the next few days where everybody picks up their phone and screams, "Can you hear me now?" and see who actually hears it.
I love that idea, because after that, well, that'll be us screaming as soon as the IRS sees this interview and they start coming after our tax returns. We'll then have to scream into the phone. That'll take care of that. Adam Levin, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal was featured earlier this hour and will be next hour in our exclusive one-on-one interview. So we thought time was right to check into one of his bayou cities, where it's everything from gas for guns to Mardi Gras beads. Cityscape takes us to Baton Rouge next on MidPoint.